Alright, welcome to channel, and today in celebration of EFL season starting tonight, we're going to go through a full 100% complete loose set of the 1996-1997 Football League collection, the First Division 97 collection by Panini. So every single team in it from the First Division, which is now the Championship, plus a team picture of all the teams in Divisions 2 and 3, which is now League 1 and 2. So don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe and enjoy. Right then, so let's get started with first team then. So in this book, there's no like trophy stick or anything like that. Starting off with number 1, which is the Barnsley badge. I do like this badge as well. I know they don't actually use it as an official badge, but they should do. That's the Barnsley badge. Dave Watson, England goalkeeping coach last I knew. Matty Appleby, Steve Davis, Arjen Dezu, who went on to Wigan, didn't he? Nicky Eden, who does a good podcast, doesn't he, on one of the podcasts. A good story about Steve Bruce. Neil Thompson, Andy Little, Neil Redfern, who were a good player for Barnsley, weren't he, in Championship and in Premier League. Darren Sheridan, I've already done it once, but anyone in the comments try and guess how old Darren Sheridan is on this exact photo. I know he looks like he spent a good few years down Bits, which he probably did as well. But yeah, he's not as old as you think. Carol van der Velden, Martin Bullock, Clint Marcel, and Paul Wilkinson. Got to say, even though it's only League 1 and League 2 start, I am looking forward to the new Football League season started, hence why I'm doing this video now. So we're on to Birmingham City then. They spent quite a bit of money this season as well, in the 96-97 season, which they have done this season as well, so they're going to be a dark horse this season, aren't they? So there's your badge. Ian Bennett, Sheffield United fan actually, and played a few games for us as well. Gary Ablett, Gary Breen, Steve Bruce, who Nicky Eden tells that story about, doesn't he? Well, I think they were at Birmingham, weren't they? Michael Johnson, Gary Poole, Jason Bowen, Barry Horn, Jonathan Hunt, later played for Blades, Andy Legg, Paul Tate, Paul Devlin, who was a really good player at Blades as well, and a Birmingham legend. Did really like you, definitely when at United. And Paul Furlong, who were, again, another player. He had a short loan spell at Blades, he did, Paul Furlong. I'm sticking a penalty in top corner in the last minute against Portsmouth. Yeah, so Birmingham, I think, finishing playoffs, or just outside the playoffs in 96-97. Actually, yeah, because the playoff teams were Wolves, Palace, Ipswich and the Blades this season. So on to the champions then for the 96-97 season, Bolton Wanderers. So there's your badge. Keith Brannigan, I think they scored 100 goals and got 98 points, didn't they? Gudny Bergson, Chris Fairclough, Jimmy Phillips, Jerry Taggart, Per Franson, Michael Johansson, Scott Sellers, Alan Thompson, who later went on to Villa and Celtic, didn't he? Nathan Blake, one part of the deadly partnership up front with John McGinley, because they did score a lot of goals as well. Mixu Patalainen and Scott Taylor. Again, Nathan Blake, I think the Bolton signed him from the Blades. He's got quite a few goals for us as well in the Premier League and the First Division. Then on to the newly promoted team, Bradford City, and they are newly promoted this season, well, into League 1, aren't they? Jonathan Gold, Richard Huxford, Wayne Jacobs, looks like Tommy Craig, doesn't he? Graham Mitchell, Nicky Mowen, Marco Sass, Eddie Ouds, Gordon Cowans, who, believe it or not, he's not in his 70s yet. I think he's about 37, and I'm not kidding. He is honestly in his 30s there. He's had a rough paper round. Lee Duxbury, Des Hamilton, Sean Murray, Andy Kiwamya, Mark Stallard. And now we're on to Charlton Athletic, who were newly promoted to the Championship in the coming season, not on about, not the 96-97 season. But they've not long since been back in Valley Parade, had they? Mike Salmon, Stuart Bolmer, Anthony Barnes, Steve Brown, Richard Rufus, who stayed for him for a long time, didn't he? Good defender, Richard Rufus. Jamie Stewart, Paul Mortimer, Sean Newton, John Robinson, Bradley Allen, Carl Leeburn, and Mark Robson, and David White. And now we're on to my most hated team of this particular season, Crystal Palace. If anyone don't know, Crystal Palace beat the Blades in the playoff final 1-0. I think 93rd minute goal, were it, from David Hopkin. So yeah, I really don't like David Hopkin for no reason other than that. And it's odd, isn't it? I don't know if you've been on Twitter or on YouTube with the podcast and everything, but there's HLTCO, in the Hopkin looking to curl one, who's basically earns a living out of that David Hopkin goal. Like, what a sliding doors moment. Completely ruined my childhood, but yeah, he's making a living out of it. So it's shows you how these different things can affect you in football, doesn't it? But anyway, there's the Palace badge. Chris Day, the keeper. Leif Anderson. Dean Gordon. Darren Pitcher. Robert Quinn. There he is. David Hopkin. I do not like you. At least, he's good looking, isn't he? But yeah, I defaced him on my original book. Ray Houghton, who was a really good player. Leon McKenzie. Andy Roberts. Simon Roger. Bruce Dyer, who later went on to play for the Blades. I think he still lives in Barnsley, actually, Bruce Dyer. Dougie Friedman. And George Ndar. Now we're on to Mariners, Grimsby Town, who actually weren't a bad side for quite a few years in Championship, or the First Division as it was then. Been to Grimsby a few times as well, stadium. So I've got Jason Piercy, Tony Gallimore, Peter Handyside, John McDermott, Richard Smith, Tommy Widrington, Kingsley Black, first player recognised for Grimsby, Gary Childs, the late great Craig Shakespeare, Jamie Forrester, another player recognised, Steve Livingston, and another one. I remember a game being postponed for about 15 minutes in first half when he had a bad injury. I think against Derby, weren't it? I think Clive Mendonca did used to play for Blades, and the season after this scored a hat-trick in playoff final for Charlton. And Neil Woods against Sunderland. And next team then, we're on to Terriers, Huddersfield Town. I think they went down a couple of seasons after this, actually, didn't they? Not this season. They went down with Steve Bruce, didn't they? So Steve Francis, goalkeeper. Tom Cowan, Kevin Gray, Steve Jenkins, Andy Morrison, another player we had on loan, Lee Sinnott, Darren Bullock, definitely remember him playing for Blades, Simon Collins, Lee Mackle, Rob Edwards, Andy Payton, Paul Reed, Marcus Stewart, who's unfortunately got, is it Parkinson's he's got? Or is it motor neuron disease? Unfortunately, I hope he recovers or gets his best life as he can. And now we're on to freshly relegated down to the Championship this season, but obviously we're always up there for years, weren't they, in First Division at this point in time, and is Ipswich Town. Richard Wright, Tony Mowbray, Mick Stockwell, Mauricio Taricco. Well, just one of them players you just love to hate, Mauricio Taricco, don't you? Remember in playoff semi-final, one of our players, Nicky Henry, just did a knee drop on his face and got sent off. Tony Vaughan, Simon Milton, Steve Sedgley, looks like he's trying to hold in a laugh or a fart, one of the two, isn't he? Yeah. Danny Sonner, Klaus Thompson, Goose Ulenbeek, again, another play for Blades, Grant Williams, Alex Matthey, and James Scowcroft. Flying down these, and that, a bit of a shock to some people if they weren't aware of, like, Man City before they became one of the best teams in the world. Man City, when they were really, really bad, they stayed up this season in First Division, and then they went down to what is now League One the season after. So yeah, they did drop quite low down, didn't they? So anyway, there's your badge. Ike Immel as the goalkeeper. Richard Edgill, yeah, played for Blades. Alan Kernigan. Kit Simons, who went on to have still a decent career after this, didn't he, with Fulham. Peter Beardsley, who again went on to Everton and Bradford, didn't he, in Premier League. Ian Brightwell. Nigel Clough, former Blades manager, and son of probably one of the greatest managers to never manage England, Brian Clough. Mikhail Kivalashvili. Georgie Kinkladze, absolute baller he was, weren't he, for Man City. Steve Lomas, Martin Phillips, Uwe Rosler, and Nicky Summerby for Man City. That's your Man City team. A little bit different to today's Man City team, isn't it, that? So we're on to Norwich City then. Again, there was a team around about there, aren't they? Brian Gunn. Is his son still playing for Norwich at the minute? Carl Bradshaw. Genuinely lives up road from me. Danny Mills. Look at him there. I think this is his rookie sticker, actually, this, for Danny Mills. Whose son is like a top marathon runner, isn't he? Rob Newman. John Polston. Neil Adams. Ian Crook. Andy Johnson, who George Santos' best mate, isn't he? If anyone knows about that, the Battle of Bramall Lane. Mike Milligan. Keith O'Neill. It's like he should be in Boyzone, don't you, with that name as well. Darryl Such. Darren Eady was an absolutely fantastic player, but he got a really bad injury, didn't he? Was it Coventry? I think it was where he went, weren't it? But yeah, a really bad injury ended his career. So we're in England squad playing in First Division. That's how good he were. And Robert Fleck, who's John Fleck's dad. John Fleck played for Blades. He watched look pretty similar, to be honest. And then back in the Football League then, we're on to Oldham. Believe it or not, that promotion that Oldham got in the playoff final from National League is their first promotion since, I think, 1990 or 1991, when they got promoted to what is now the Premier League. I think it's just been relegations, but here we go. Oldham Athletic. I think Neil Warnock was manager of at the time. Nah. John Allworth. Craig Fleming. Gunnar Haller. Scott McNiven. Steve Redmond. Nick Henry. Toddy Orligson. Martin Pemberton. Lee Richardson, Paul Rickers, Nicky Banger, Stuart Barlow, and Sean McCarthy. Now we're on to Second Division teams, which will be League One now. And out of Second Division and Third Division, 5 of these clubs that's on here are actually in the Premier League now. So it just goes to show, doesn't it? You know, can be down on your dumps and down on your luck now as a supporter, but look where you could end up. So we've got Bournemouth, who obviously are in the Premier League. Blackpool, who were in the Premier League. Brentford, who are in the Premier League. Bristol City, who were in playoffs last year to get in Premier League. Bristol Rovers, Burnley, who are in the Premier League now, Bury, who are working their way back up the leagues, Chesterfield, Crewe Alexandra, Gillingham, Luton Town, Millwall, Notts County, Peterborough United, Plymouth Argyle, Preston North End, Rotherham United, Shrewsbury Town, Stockport County, Walsall, Watford, Wrexham. I'll give you a good look at that one. So obviously Wrexham, everyone knows Wrexham's story, don't they? And they're now in the Championship and they're making a good effort. I think they're looking like signing Kiefer Moore front Blades, aren't they? Wycombe Wanderers and York City, who are in the National League, aren't they now? And then on to the third division teams. So we've got Barnet, Brighton and Hove Albion. Look how far they've come. Look at them now. They're one of the they're like established Premier League teams, aren't they? Making so much money as well. Cambridge United, Cardiff City, and believe in this particular season they stayed up on the last day of the season. Otherwise, they got relegated to the National League Conference as it was then. Carlisle United, Chester City, Colchester United, Darlington, who no longer exist, Doncaster Rovers, Exeter City, Fulham, who obviously know again, established Premier League team, Hartlepool United, Hereford United, Hull City, Leyton Orient, Lincoln City, Mansfield Town, Northampton Town, Rochdale, Scarborough no longer exist as well, Scunthorpe United, who nearly didn't exist, Swansea City, Torquay United and Wigan Athletic. Now we're on to second there for teams in First Division then, so on to Oxford, who are actually in the Championship at the minute, aren't they? Stayed up last season, so we've got Badge, Phil Whitehead, Matt Elliott. I don't think they went down this season either. I think it was Oldham, Grimsby and Southend, weren't it, went down. Mike Ford, Phil Gilchrist, Les Robinson, Joey Beecham, Bobby Ford, who later that season went on to sign for Blades. Well, decentish player, could take a good penalty as well for United, but I think it's quite sad now. He's just gone right out of public limelight. I think he's got alcohol addiction as well. That's what I've been told. Anyway, I hope he's getting better. Martin Gray, Stuart Massey, David Smith, Martin Aldridge, Paul Moody, David Rush. Now we're on to Port Vale. I think, if I'm right, I'm sure they finished about 8th this season. I think Portsmouth were 7th, weren't they? And Port Vale were about 8th. So yeah, look where they are now. So, Arjen van Heusden, Neil Aspin, Dean Glover, Andy Hill, Alan Tankard, great name, Ian Bogie, Steve Guppy before he went to Leicester, Andy Porter, Ray Walker. Obviously Port Vale play at the Wembley of the North, don't they, as they call it, so the actual size of it is quite big, isn't it, their ground? Not the height, but the size. Martin Foyle, John McCarthy, Lee Mills and Tony Naylor. On to Pompey then. Like I say, I'm sure they finished 7th in this season, just missing out to Palace. So the Badge, Alan Knight, Andy Orford, Guy Butters, Lee Russell, Andy Thompson, Martin Allen, Jimmy Carter, Alan McLaughlin, Robbie Pethick, Fitzroy Simpson, John Durnin, Paul Hall, Jason Rees, and that's Portsmouth for you. Now we're on to QPR. I think, like Man City, it was their first season back in this division for quite some time. We've been relegated from the Premier League in the 95-96 seasons. We've got QPR badge. Jurgen Sommer. David Bardsley. Rufus Brevitt. Danny Maddox. Alan McDonald. Carl Reddy. Steve Yates, another player who went on to play for Blades. Simon Barker. Trevor Sinclair. Oh, this was a season where he scored that amazing overhead kick in the FA Cup against Barnsley. I'm sure it will, weren't it? Daniel Dichio. Andy Impey. Nigel Quasi. And Steve Slade. Now we're on to Reading. And look at that badge. That's very different to the badge now, isn't it? But yeah, just a plain old few trees and Reading. There in the badge. Got Bobby Mihailov, keeper. Andy Burnell. Paul Bowden. I say Wrexham's new away kit. It's very Reading of the 90s, isn't it? Let's say Barry Hunter. Darius Vodvachik, I think. Darren Caskey. Stuart Lovell. Michael Meeker. They got relegated this season as well, didn't they? No, season after, sorry. Phil Parkinson. Michael Gilks. Paul Hosgrove. James Lambert. And Lee Nogan. Now, on to best team in league, obviously being biased, because we finished 5th. On to Sheffield United, so there's the brilliant Blades badge. Alan Kelly, one of my best keepers for Blades. Charlie Artfields, I'm from Arsenal, I think. Lee Sanford, who was betting on stocks and shares now, I was anyway. Chris Short, whose brother Craig played for us season we went up, actually, 2005-06. Michael Vonk. Mark Patterson. Mitch Ward. Dane Whitehouse, again, one of my favourite Blades players, whose career was really abruptly cut short by one of the world's worst human beings, Gareth Ainsworth. Don Hutchinson before he went on to Everton. Peter Kachuro, the Belarusian legend. Gareth Taylor. He's no longer the Man City women's manager, is he? Andy Walker for Sky Sports. And David White. So that is obviously best team in league. Now on to Southend, who, if I'm right in thinking, finished rock bottom in this season. So there's your badge. Simon Royce. Keith Dublin. Mike Lapper. Look at that square haircut he's got there. That is like precision square, that, isn't it? Lee Roger. Yeah, Roger. I'll forget. Paul Byrne. Phil Gridley. Andy Sussex. Steve Tilson. Jerry Bower. Julian Hales. Mike Marsh. Andy Rammell. And Andy Thompson. We're on to Stoke now. Kind of about where they generally are, I think, in the Championship at the minute. The badge has changed a little bit, I think. So that's badge there. Carl Muggleton. John Dreyer. Obviously, the stadium's changed, hasn't it? Ian Cranston. Laris Sigurdsson. Ray Wallace. Justin Whittle. Nigel Worthington. Carl Beeston. Richard Forsyth. Kevin Keane. Martin Carruthers. Gerard McMahon. Simon Sturridge. And now we're on to Swindon. Swindon Town, so we were Oldham, Grimsby and Southend. Swindon didn't go down in this season, I think the season after. Swindon Town badge. Frank Talia, that's it, we're on loan at Blades at some point. Ian Culverhouse. Frederick Duras. Kevin Horlock, Scott Leach, Mark Robinson, Mark Seagraves, Paul Allen, he's relegated from the Premier League same season we were, 93-94, Steve Cow, Mark Walters, Wayne Allison, Big Chief, Wayne Allison, who I think not long before this was a right winger. I've never imagined Chief playing at right wing, but yeah, had a few seasons at Blades as well. Steve Finney and Peter Thorne. Now we're on to Tranmere, who have they just been relegated back to National League? I can't remember actually. That's what Tranmere Rovers. Danny Coyne, who were a good keeper. Jed Brannan, John McGreal, Gary Stevens, Sean Teal, Ivano Bonetti, Paul Cook, who was at Chesterfield managing art, Paul Cook with hair as well, Kenny Irons, Liam O'Brien, John Aldridge, who couldn't look more of a Scouse if he tried, could he? Because that is a Scouse look if I've ever seen one. Good player as well for Liverpool and for Tranmere. Ian Moore, son of Ronnie Moore, John Morrissey, and Pat Nevin. I wish Ronnie Moore all the best. That was cancer diagnosis as well. Now we're on to West Brom. Nigel Spink, keeper there. Darryl Burgess. Paul Marden. Shane Nicholson, you guessed it, went to play for Blades a couple of seasons after. Julian Darby. Dave Gilbert. Paul Groves. Richard Sneakers. Lee Ashcroft. Ian Hamilton. Went on to play for Blades, and I think late, great Ian Hamilton as well. Sure I've seen that he died somewhere. Andy Hunt. Pesce. Paul Pesce-Salido, who scored like one of the best goals ever for Blades, where semi-final against Forest. Literally turned their defence inside and out and then just slotted it past keeper. And Bob Taylor. And then your last team then, the Black Country rivals of West Brom, Wolverhampton Wanderers. Got Mike Stowell, Mark Atkins, Neil Emblem, late great Dean Richards, Andy Thompson, Mark Venus, Adrian Williams, Darren Ferguson, who was manager at Peterborough, and Alex Ferguson's son, Steve Froggatt, Simon Osborne, Steve Bull, one of the best goal scorers for Wolves, weren't he? And played for England as well while he was in one at lower leagues, weren't he? Might have been Championship, I'm not sure. Ewan Roberts. And lastly, number 384 is James Smith. So there you go then. That is your full 100% complete loose set for the Panini First Division 96-97 season sticker collection. Like I said, this is in celebration at Football League starting tonight and the fact that Panini are getting back the licence. Well, I've got back the licence for the EFL and we'll be producing stickers and card collections for it, so I can't wait till they come out. But yeah, let me know what you think of this collection in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you there on next time.